Right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. I am Sourabhi Dutta Roy, your project lead for the Story Project 12 by www.tellmeyourstory.biz. And I welcome you all to the third episode of the Women Without Names series. I feel extremely privileged to have with us this evening Mr. Rishabh Kothari, Dr. Akhaya Nayak, and Ms. Sai Swaroopa Iyer. Today's topic for the discussion is spiritual equality. Tell Me Your Story also calls for submissions on the story prompt, that is, Women Without Names. Registrations are also open for the writing program season 13. Let me begin now by introducing our panelists to the audience. Rishabh C Kothari is an entrepreneur by profession and a heartfulness meditation trainer by passion. He is also the CEO of CKC Fragrances, a leading manufacturer of fragrances for industrial applications, where his craft is an interesting mix of science and creativity, which extends to his interests and personality as well. He's very active in social as well as industry bodies and forums, including being the president of the 120-year-old Premier Business Chamber, MCCI, as well as the Fragrances and Flavors Association of India. He often writes and contributes to various publications and periodicals and is also the editor of a perfumery journal. A widely read and traveled person, Rishabh's own personal development journey was initiated by joining the Heartfulness movement. Heartfulness meditation is a unique combination of the scientific and the esoteric, which he not only subscribes to, but also an ardent proponent of teaching people how to meditate and contributes to the Heartfulness organization in various capacities, including as its joint secretary. Apart from writing in various publications on industry concerns and social development issues, he is a familiar face on panels in various industry events as well as on television news channels, providing insights on various subjects related to industry, government policy, and human development. He has participated in various literary fests as speaker as well as moderator and is at ease in dealing with subjects as diverse as business and industry, social development, as well as spirituality. Welcome, Rishabh.
Thank you.
Moving on, our next panelist, Akhaya Nayak, is an associate professor in the School of Management, IIT Mandi. Prior to joining IIT Mandi, he was an assistant professor at Indian Institute of Management, Indore. His teaching interests include business ethics and corporate social responsibility, sustainability in practice, and leadership insights from Vedic scriptures. His research papers are published in several international and national journals. He has also presented research papers in various conferences in India and abroad, including the UK, the USA, Austria, Portugal, Greece, France, Australia. Welcome, Akhaya. Moving on, our last panelist for the day, Sai Swaroopa Iyer, is an author of
Thank you.
five best-selling novels based on ancient Indian women protagonists. She is also a recipient of this Three Shakti Award for her contribution to Indian literature. She mentors upcoming writers and conducts workshops and other training programs for aspiring novelists. She is also a curator with Indica Books. With Mahabharata, Indica history, and philosophy being her focus areas, she also seeks to see more of those themes making a presence in popular creative forms that celebrate Indian civilization. She has also trained in Carnatic classical music and has won a gold medal from TTD for her rendition of Annamacharya Kritis. Welcome, Swarupa.
Thank you, Sourabhi.
Right, moving on now. To begin with, I would like to ask you, would you like to share with us your personal engagement with the topic of spirituality? What does spiritual equality mean to each of you, and how do you connect with it in your personal and professional life? Um, Risha, would you like to take over?
Sure. So, very good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this panel today and discussing something which is very close to my heart because I think spirituality is something which is extremely all inclusive. Uh, my Guruji, Divya Ramchandraji Maharaj, used to quip that religion divides, but spirituality unites. So when we talk about spiritual equality, I think the most important aspect of this is that there is a divine spark or a divine essence in all of us, and nobody can deny that spark that each one of us has, which is the living entity, which is the life force within us. So, what do we mean by spiritual equality? It is about, I think, everyone having their own relationship with their God, everyone having their own connection with the Almighty in a way which they would like to express, in a fashion which they would like to maintain. So I think that's the most important part of what spiritual equality is all about. And when we talk about our own personal engagement, I can talk about myself. uh, I have been fortunate to have discovered a spiritual path, which is heartfulness, at a relatively younger age of 15. And having practiced this, I can talk about how effective it has been in my own life, in my own spiritual journey, in my inner quest, where it has taught me balance and equanimity. So I think we have a very illustrious panel here. So I would just end this by saying that the most important part of spirituality is the fact that it treats everyone as equal and there is no judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Rishabh, for that wonderful opening statement that spirituality brings us together. Uh, Akhaya, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Sourabhi. So nice to be here among all of you. So as Rishabh has already talked about, I have also similar opinion. You see, most of the people tend to think that once you become religious, you tend to be kind of subscribing to inequality, and then you tend to fight among yourself. This is because we perceive, we understand spirituality from the lens of organized religious practices that is going on in the world. Right? Like somebody says, I'm Hindu, somebody says, I'm Muslim, somebody says, I'm Christian. So I'm Christian, I'm not others. I'm Hindu, I'm not. This inequality. Spirituality involves a term called spirit. Uh, in Bhagavad Gita, we come across this term called spirit soul in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says that each living entity is a spirit soul, and each living entity has a qualitative equality. Every spirit and every living entity is a spirit soul, which is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So when every living entity is made up of the same element, and which is equal in all respect, not only human beings, it also extends to all other living entities. So spirituality is, like Rishabh said, it is all inclusive, and it doesn't create a division on the basis of the body that we are having or the bodily characteristic. Rather, it talks about the essence. Okay, and that is what is the spiritual equality to me. And my personal quest with spirituality, I was kind of an inquisitive student from the beginning. And when I came to IIT Kanpur to do a PhD, even before that, I used to question what is the purpose of the existence. Especially when I look around me, then I used to see, people are, being born, they're growing up, taking up a job, marrying, having some children, and dying. And everybody follows the same pattern, right? And it was in a kind of not acceptable to me that is it just the purpose of life to be born, to grow, then to get a job, earn something, have some offspring, and then die. So being a human being, there should be some higher purpose in life for which we are given so much of facilities. Uh, so those questions were actually disturbing me always. So that is why I started searching for different paths. When I joined IIT Kanpur, we had different clubs. We had a Vivekananda club, we had a Bhaktivedanta club, and different clubs were there. And I used to go to all the clubs to acquire knowledge. So I got to know about the Advaita, oneness, then Dvaita, Visishta Advaita, all those different branches of knowledge. And then I started studying Bhagavad Gita. and from where my journey systematically started, by reading Bhagavad Gita. We had a professor there who was teaching Bhagavad Gita, and then I started to understand what is the dichotomy between the spirit and matter. Okay, that was the beginning of my spiritual life when I started to understand the difference between spirit and matter, and that's how I continued, and then trying to uh, kind of ignite some questions among the young mind. I don't I know I can't say that I'm enlightening them, but at least I'm kind of trying to make them question things. So that is what I'm doing. That I did in IIM Indore, and that is what I'm also doing in IIT Kanpur, along with teaching business ethics, corporate social responsibility, and sustainability. Yeah, thank you. So
Right. Thank you, Akhaya, for sharing your journey with us. Swaropa, over to you.
So wonderful points put in by both Rishabh ji and Professor Akhaya. Yes, spirituality brings us both, brings all of us on for the lack of better word, equal pedestal, and in that pedestal doesn't stop with humans, as Professor Akhaya rightly pointed out. Especially when during the year like India is. Handling the G20, where Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the tagline, right? That that itself is a reminder that spirituality is something totally it's all pervasive. And however, I feel religion and spirituality are very much interconnected, because religious practices, each of religious practices, they are engineered, or they are designed in such a way to what do you say, we imbibe a certain discipline, a certain humility, a certain regime, and through practice we come to that stage. We hope to attain that stage where we realize that oneness between matter and spirit, as Akhayaji has just mentioned. So each of these practices, especially because I personally come from a Sri Vidya tradition, which where I practice, and so we are taught that each of we through the practices are called upadhi, right? Upadhi means means. So what I work as a assistant professor for my sustenance. So that's my upadhi. But upadhi doesn't remain. That's not the goal. So the goal is something higher, right? So I do the archana to connect to Prithvi, that is earth. So we have all the panchabhutas. So we have archana, we have pranayama, we have homa, we have tarpana, and we have japa. So each of these upadhis are meant to connect us with the panchabhutas, the five elements, and the five elements, and then transcend to something higher than them. In process, it's we kind of adopt the whole universe, or maybe multiverse, as within us, as Akhaji was talking about Advaita, and Visishta Advaita. I mean, I'm not trying to qualify each of those uh, paths or schools of thought, but it's about, to in one sentence, spirituality is all about finding that oneness with the universe, or with the multiverse, and with the force that would be running these multiverse, and religion is one path to it.
Right. Thank you, Swaropa. I'm sure that from all three of you, our audience who might not know that much of spirituality and spiritual equality would have been interested in the concept, if not yet.
If I can
My
add one point,
Sure.
religion and spirituality, both, they can happen as early as, maybe before we are born itself in our mother's wombs. So there is a lot of misunderstanding that spirituality is something we pursue, like, after our retirement, and, we can't be more wrong. The early we adapt, it's the better it is for us. Sorry.
No, sure, sure. Uh, Moving on, my next question is for Rishabh. Since you already told us that you have been engaged with heartfulness for quite some time now, so according to you, what is the philosophical foundation of the concept of spiritual equality?
You know, whether we talk about Occidental philosophy or Oriental philosophy, I like this sentence which is often quoted from the Bible, which is that God made us in His own image. But when we say about His own image, what do we mean? Does it mean that my face is going to is like God, or are my attributes like God, or things like that? I think the whole idea of spiritual equality is the fact that there is a divine essence within us, and each one has their own journey with that divinity which is present within us. And I think, when we talk about equality, it is not like everything is the same. Equality is respect for everyone, and equality is each person's unique journey or experience. You know, often we talk about the apparent conflict between science and spirituality, and a lot of times, this comes from the fact that when we talk about science, we talk about replicability of any action. If it is to be scientific, we say under the same circumstances, the same actions must happen. While the Oriental philosophy, from where we come from, believes that every action, every aspect, every attribute, however similar they may seem, they are yet unique. So every experience, even though we may all appear to be similar, even if the experiences may be similar, even if the practices may be similar, at the end of the day, all of it is extremely unique and individual to all of us. So I think when we talk about spiritual equality, it is about that uniqueness and the aspect of respect and appreciation of the uniqueness that each one has. It is not about equality in terms of everybody being the same. It is about each one of us embracing that uniqueness and and admiring that splendor that this divinity creates, the divine effulgence that is created within all of us. So, if you ask me, that is the philosophical basis for all of us being similar and yet unique. And that is what spiritual equality is all about.
Thank you, Rishabh. Moving on to Akhaya, you have already talked about spiritual equality in terms of oneness. So, do you believe that spiritual equality can coexist amid social realities and economic disparities of the world? And if yes, then how so?
Yes, very interesting question. See, as Rishabh already talked about, and I'm also uh, trained in a social science called sociology for some times. Okay. So in sociology, we come across the terms like inequality, stratification, and all those terms. So no society is actually equal. Okay. In terms of the criteria that you have talked about, socioeconomic inequalities, there is racial differences or the differences in the physical features. So all those inequalities are bound to be there in every society. Okay. You cannot make everybody look alike. You cannot, have same amount of wealth with everybody. You can't have, some inequalities are bound to be there. Okay. But what, if you, I just want to answer your question in terms of a example from Indian perspective. You see, in India, the common clothes used to be dhoti or sari. Okay. And these dhoti and saris, these were never tailor-made for anybody. Okay. You don't have to go to a tailor to design a dhoti for you. You just buy it. Okay. And then anybody can wear. A person from for an, person of any size can wear the dhoti or wear the sari. You don't have to tailor make it for any particular individual. So that is what is any school of thought, which is applicable. So we talk about Veda. Veda, one of the words comes in Galitan Phalam. Okay, Nigama means Veda. Kalpataru means a desired tree. And Vedas are considered as desired tree because anybody who approaches Veda, he has something for him in the Vedas. You need a son, there is a Putra Kameshti Yajna. Okay. You need a bigger kingdom, you have a Rajashya Yajna. All right. You need Mukti, you have Upanishads. Okay. The path which leads to Mukti. So you want anything, there is a legal path. Okay. Legal in the sense accepted path in the Veda, how you can satisfy. So that is why Veda is called Kalpataru. So it has something for everybody. Nobody can be excluded from following the Vedic philosophy. Okay, of course, in our society made it impossible for some people for some time, but now it has again been understood. Okay, so that is what and how. What is the basis of it? The basis of it is the philosophy that is there in Bhagavad Gita and even Veda or Srimad Bhagavatam. And one verse comes to that there is a dichotomy between Deha and Dehi. Okay. Then Krishna, because Arjuna was thinking, how can I kill my relatives, my grandfather, my guru? Okay. So it was not that he could not kill the greater fighters, but he was confused about his own identity. How should he act? Should he act like a husband who should give justice to his wife? Should he act like a kshatriya, a king? Okay, that he should, do justice on the principle of Nyaya. Should he act like a grandson who should protect his grandfather? Should he act like a student who should protect his guru? So, what is his identity now? He was confused about his identity. Okay, so Krishna chastised him and started to tell him that Arjuna, the problem that you have is that you don't know what is your problem, and that problem is you don't know who are you, what is your identity. So let me first tell you what is your identity. So then he starts with that verse, Dehinosmin atha dehe komaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namoyate. It says that you are concerned about all the identities which are related to your deha, body, but you are never thinking about the person that you are, that is Dehi. Okay, Dehi is that spirit soul. Okay, so in that respect, Deha will be different, and designations regarding the Deha will certainly be different for everybody. But in spite of all these differences, everybody is a spirit soul, and everybody is allowed to follow that path which connects him to the super soul or the supreme consciousness. So what is that we can easily understand as the unit of consciousness, okay, the individual unit of consciousness. And we have a supreme consciousness. So everybody can connect himself as an individual unit of consciousness to that supreme unit of consciousness. Okay, so that is there for everybody. All right, and those physical differences will be there. Identities related to the body will be there, and then especially because we are conducting this session on gender equality. Okay, so there we got a particular kind of body like a male body and female body. So for male body, some work may be suitable. For female body, some work may be suitable. Like a female can give birth to a child, which a male cannot do. So on that basis, if we say, no, you are not equal because I can do something you cannot. So this is not the idea of equality that we are talking about. Everybody has to do everything. It's not that, okay, in order to be equal, male and female both have to give birth to a child. No, it's not possible. Okay. But if a male can do something and female can do something and both can come together, okay, and then lead a good life where everybody respects each other's capability and complements each other's lacuna, that is a better society where you know the peaceful coexistence is possible. That is what is the concept of spiritual equality that I want to subscribe, rather than forcing everybody to be equal or to do equal things, and then if you don't do, then you are considered. So that kind of
Akhaya, you are on mute.
yes. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Akhaya. That was especially a very fascinating example of the dhoti and the sari. Um, Moving on, my next question is for Swarupa. You have based your books on a lot of Indian historical facts as well as myths. So, in your books, which are the historical examples where the pursuit of spiritual equality has led to significant social or political change? Swarupa, you are on mute.
Sorry. I'm sorry. So yes, thank you, Sourabhi. So before I get into my books, there is one example that I would love to quote, especially because I focus on feminine narratives rather. Uh, I want to focus on one incident from Brahmanda Purana. Right. So in Brahmanda Purana, Rishi Agastya approaches Lord Hayagriva for Sri Vidya. So he approaches, he wants to be initiated into the knowledge of mother. Sri Vidya is the knowledge of mother goddess. So there are shlokas where Agastya prays to Hayagriva and talks about the importance of Lalita Sahasranama, and he wants Lord Hayagriva to give him that. When Lord Hayagriva starts speaking, the first address he gives to Rishi Agastya, he says, Lopamudra Pate Gastya. So generally, people are addressed by their, by their clan, by their vamsha, by their father's name. Say, oh, Krishna, son of Vasudeva, Rama, son of Dasharatha. But there is this unique mention here where he is addressing Agastya as the husband of Lopamudra. So, Hayagriva is qualifying Agastya, saying, being the husband of Lopamudra, you qualify for Sri Vidya because your wife is, such an exalted soul. So, Lopamudra Pategastya Savadhanam Anashrunu Namnam Sahasram Yannoktam Karanam Tadvadamite. So he says, because you are the husband of Lopamudra, listen carefully. I am now going to initiate you into Lalita Sahasranam. So that is, one of the, striking examples where, the women's contribution to spiritual wealth of India, is very beautifully enunciated. So that has been my inspiration. When I indirectly, directly, that has been my inspiration as I pursued my own feminine narratives. A couple of my novels focus on the goddess worship and things that can even go wrong. While one can think that okay, I'm doing goddess worship, but one can still go wrong, as it happened with Narakasura. Uh, so that was the topic of my book Abhaya. So yes, I think spiritual consciousness, right? It gives a great balance of the purusharthas. So we have four purusharthas, four pursuits: kama, artha, dharma, and moksha. Artha, kama are something that all of us are in pursuit of. Say kama, all humans and animals are in pursuit of. Artha is something where humans have got a certain expertise in, and dharma is something where humans have the potential. But moksha is something which strengthens dharma wherever artha and kama come in conflict with dharma. Right? So these two tend to overwhelm dharma, and that's when moksha comes and tells, each of tells us, "Ki, this is not permanent, so don't fall into it." So that's where it balances and stops us from falling, or falling into greed cycle of artha and kama. So that has been, for whether they have been my male characters or female characters of my book, and this has been more or less a guiding force where where everybody in life has that, like Akhaya ji beautifully expounded Arjuna's dharma sandeha, right? So he was trying to balance between various dharmas of his, and again spirituality became the key, saying nothing of this is permanent, the you are real, the real you is different, it's higher, is what Krishna tells him. So if I have to really quote an example, I would quote of Rukmini. That's my fifth book. When she made the choice of Krishna, right, Krishna as her husband. Of course, Bhagavatam gives a beautiful narrative of devotion. But at the same time, if we consider the political situation, Krishna was a promising hero. I mean, just for little time, if we, kind of set aside the fact was Krishna was an avatara, but, he was a promising hero. He killed Kamsa, fine, he protected the Yadavas, but he was pursued by a very powerful emperor, Jarasandha. And there was practically nobody who could stand against Jarasandha during that point of time when Rukmini made her choice. Right? And who would want to take on a powerful emperor for some nice warrior, right? So it is that kind of knowledge of dharma and moksha where Rukmini recognizes whatever this Jarasandha is doing is not going to sustain. Instead, I have to opt for a sustainable option, which is why Krishna Vasudeva becomes the choice, the sustainable choice. So that is the subconscious choice decision making thought process of Rukmini. And I think if we consider many other women also, like take Savitri for instance. Savitri, when she chose Satyavan also, he was an exiled prince, right? So she saw in him something beyond the worldly things, and she was strong enough to choose him, strong enough to fight intellectually, intellectually debate with Yamadharmaraja and take back Satyavan's life. So I think it's that this this combination of intellectual capacity and very committed belief on dharma and moksha that that made our women stronger as well as men.
Right. Thank you for giving us the behind the scenes that goes into making your books. Rishabh, how does meditation and how would you say that meditation and mindfulness shatter biases and channelize the pursuit of spiritual equality towards fostering social justice and human rights?
Well, that's quite a mouthful. I think, it may sound repetitive, but see, when we meditate, we are connecting with our inner self. See, when we talk about biases, when we talk about, social justice, human rights, these are manifestations of what is within us. I think when we meditate, when we talk about heartfulness, when we talk about connecting with our heart, there is a innate divinity, there is an innate goodness which is there within us. And when we connect with the divinity within ourselves, I think biases cannot exist. I think there is nothing called social justice. When we treat people equally, when we respect people, we don't need to talk about human rights. We need to talk about human rights, we need to talk about social justice only when those rights are deprived or when there is no justice. But when, as a human being, if I'm connected to my heart, if I'm connected to the divinity within me, and if I'm able to respect and see the reflection of the divinity in the other person, when I recognize the divinity in the other person, I don't think there is any room for biases. I don't think we need to talk about social justice because we respect the other person. We respect their choices. We respect them for what they are. Each one of us are on a journey, inner journey, and we respect what choices the other person makes and what they choose to do with their journey. So I think when we talk about human rights, when we talk about social justice, I think these are some kind of a mental imposition which we create because we feel we need to uh, get a certain sense of in the society. But when we talk about social change, when we talk about all these aspects, it is us individuals which comprise society. So when each individual in society changes, society will change on its own. There is no sweeping change that can happen otherwise. So similarly, I think when we talk about meditation, see, the practice of heartfulness is a very simple and beautiful practice of connecting with the heart. I mean, it may sound very simple, but it is what it is. So when you are connected to the heart, when you are connected to the divinity within, it has to reflect with whatever we are doing. It has to reflect outside. What is the use of me claiming to be divine and yet it does not reflect in my behavior outside? If it does not reflect in my attitude outside? I mean, we look at the from time immemorial, where so many wars have been fought in the name of God. So many wars have been fought in the name of divinity. Isn't that a paradox? Isn't that something which cannot be divine? So I think when we realize that we forget these outer manifestations, when we forget about what we think we know or what we think we have been taught, and when we ourselves connect, because there cannot be any greater wisdom than what is really within us. So it's a matter of self discovery, it's a matter of a pursuit of our inner true self. And the most important aspect of this entire journey is manifesting that beauty that is there within us. Because if there is divinity within us, it cannot be ugly. If something ugly is manifesting outside us, if there are biases, if there are prejudices, if there is injustice, obviously there is something wrong. We need to reconnect within ourselves. We need to re-question the so-called belief systems we have and connect with the heart, because the heart cannot tell us something wrong. There could be biases in the mind. We could read something, we could be misled, but the heart will always give us a correct signal. So I think the practice of heartfulness, if nothing else, is able to give us that discernment, that wisdom, that justice, that we are all made in in the way the Lord wishes us to, and we have our own journeys. And when we meditate, when we connect within ourselves, we are able to radiate that inner beauty outside, which means these abstract terms like social justice, these abstract terms like equality will not be required, because we will genuinely respect each other. And that respect will reflect in the way we deal with each other, the way we conduct with each other, the way we conduct our own selves, our own lives. So I think that's the simplest way of ensuring that there is spiritual equality in this world.
Right. Thank you, Rishabh, for putting divinity in such simple terms, and of course for telling us and bringing into focus the importance of the heart, especially in a world that always seems to be at rush. Moving on to Akhaya. though spiritual equality is a universal concept, its perception must be varying across cultures and communities. So, how does diversity contribute to this concept, and how is it relevant, especially for a country that is diverse in terms of the religion and culture and communities? Over to you, Akhaya.
Your voice was breaking. Your voice was breaking. Can you just repeat the question, please?
Right. I just said that though spiritual equality is a universal concept, its perception must be varying across cultures and
Mm-hmm.
communities. So, how would you say the diversity contributes to the
Mm-hmm.
concept?
Okay. Uh, See, there cannot be a more diverse place than India. Okay. India itself is having so much of diversity. Okay. And even if you talk about religion, Hindu religion is so diverse in itself. There is no single strand in Hinduism. Somebody worships, Vishnu or Krishna, and then he is called Vaishnava. Somebody worships Sakti, okay, and he is called Sakta. Somebody worships Shiva, and then he is called Saiva. And then there are people who may not worship all these three, but still they can be called as Hindu. Okay, and if you go to the history of the term Hinduism, and sometimes we think this is a Persian assignment to us, but the term Indus, Sapta Sindhu, Hindu, these are used, even before 500 BC. So these are there, okay, and there is so much of diversity, but still, everybody is called called just in the same name, okay, and when you go beyond India, so there are again other kinds of other forms of religion. Okay, there are different other kinds of diversities, and in the face of all those diversity, then you say, how do you establish the spiritual equality? You see, as I already told you, these diversities are always, the differences would always be there. You cannot make everybody equal. Okay, but in the face of all those, the original identity of every individual is unchanging. If we stick to that original identity of everybody, okay, if I quote from a book called Chaitanya Charitamrita, okay, so there, you can quote directly Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says in chapter 15, maybe text number 6 or 7, where he says, Mame Bancha Jiva Loko Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. It says, I am eternal. Sanatana means eternal. So I am eternal, I am Sanatana, and all the jivas, all the living entities are my part and parcel, and as my parts, they are also Sanatana. So that is the individual identity of every living entity. So when it comes to the ontological position of every individual, so all these external assignments doesn't matter. Essentially, everybody is that single individual unit of consciousness, which is part of that supreme consciousness. So even if all these designations vary, I may be from a different country, I may follow a different path, I may have a different occupation, okay, I may have a different habit. So all those external assignments will not make any difference when I'm situated in my ontological position. That is, as an individual unit of consciousness, as a part of that supreme consciousness. So this needs a little bit of reflection. If we just stick to the external identities, then we can never come to the same platform. We'll be hovering around all those external identities. But if we just try to cross beyond these external identities and try to introspect that who actually I am, and then we reach that self-realization that I am an individual unit of consciousness, part of that supreme consciousness, and I know I am also Sanatan as Krishna himself or Lord himself. Okay, then that brings us to the concept of what Dr. Sai Swaroopa was talking about, in the beginning, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. How does Vasudha become a single Kutumba? Because in a Kutumba or a family, all the sons and daughters, okay, they are born from same parents. So they are connected to the same parents. So like that, as individual units of consciousness, we all are connected to the Supreme Whole. That is Janathan. Everybody is my part and parcel. So when everybody is his part and parcel, and he also says in one verse of Bhagavad Gita, he says that, Aham Vijapada Prita. So I am the seed giving father of all the living entities. So when everybody has the same father, everybody is the part and parcel of the same supreme consciousness, then everybody belongs to the same family. So there, these external identities are in a family. One brother, externally may be more intelligent than the other brother. One brother may earn more than the other brother. But at the end of the day, everybody are the sons and daughters of the same parents. So that is how a family runs. Family doesn't run on the basis of all these external identities. So that is what when we come to that consciousness, then in the face of all these diversities, we still can have that unity. Okay, we still can have that concept of equality. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Akhaya. Moving on to Swarupa, your books all obviously has a basic theme of feminism and women's narratives. So, but there is, two kinds of feminism nowadays. One that genuinely fights for the women's dignity, and the another kind of feminism which resorts to comparison with men, replicating their choices and perhaps male bashing. So, as an author who specializes in women's narratives, how do you envisage an equal world through your writing? And do you think gender equality is a fair ask, or is it a myth by itself?
So, two different things here which I would like to address. So, when it comes from a ancient Indian perspective, there were roles which were kind of divided among the among genders, but somehow narratives turned very male centric. And I'm not talking about the source texts. So if you go to the source Mahabharata, Vyasa calls whatever is as whatever. So he has no qualms in calling out a male. He doesn't have this gender bias. Where a woman is to be exalted, he will exalt her to the skies. Where a man is wrong, he calls him wrong, right? So but that somehow that kind of vision did not percolate a long times, and somewhere we lost that balance. So rather than saying that equality kind of a thing, I think I would focus on balance and parity. Right. So I don't know whether I'm a feminist or not, because, as you said, I think there are several arguments where I support them, and several more arguments where I think they don't make sense from a from a larger perspective. So I think it's more about balance. So when it comes to social roles, like voting or inheriting property, working, salary, pay, I think it's it has to be, the parity has to be defined from a lens of equality, or equity rather. Contribution, the contribution has to be valued at par, right? But also, in this rush for that parity, I think we should not lose our uniqueness. So I always we have these discussions where feminism, in rush for feminism, I think we should not lose the feminine within us. So there's a lot of celebration about being woman, and that the uniqueness of a woman's journey. And there are beautiful things, milestones that celebrate the feminine nature of the universe, the feminine nature. When I say feminine nature, it's not just the biological women, but it's about the feminine nature of Prakriti itself, where the soft core. So as long as the soft core is also active along with the hard core, the universe is in balance. So once that balance is tipped, I think that's when problems occur. So that's where I stand. So that balance has to be preserved.
Right. And how do you make it work through your writings? Like, how do your views?
So I mean, again, there is a social side of it, and there is a inner side of it. I'm not saying social, but let's say there's an external side and there is an internal side. Right, so when I in my books, women are seekers, both material, spiritual and dharmic, which is they are balance seekers rather. So you would say when there are controlling forces, which I'm not saying controlling in a positive term, but when somebody comes out of balance and tries to overreach this and tries to tip the system of balance, I think my women rebel and fight against them. Uh, but at the same time, the women that I write about, they recognize the great men who recognize that the importance of that balance. So for that instance, if you read again, Rukmini of mine, you would see her all rebellious and feisty, when it comes to Jarasandha, when it comes to Rukma forcing her to get married to Sishupala, she is quite a firebrand there. But her behavior with Krishna is something totally different, and she becomes an exalted person. She's not that insecure uh, human being whose freedom is being threatened by forces. So she's not that woman when she comes face to face with Krishna. In Krishna, she finds a man who respects her, and not just respects her but respects all women, and what and their uh, the sanctity of being a woman. So I think that's how the women I write about. Same with Draupadi, right? She can call out, when things go wrong. She calls it out without any apologies, and at the same time, she's not that. As actually in Mahabharata itself, when Yudhishthira describes Draupadi, he describes her as the second name of compassion. So I know we misunderstand Draupadi like somebody very vengeful. Either there are two narratives about Draupadi. Somebody want to portray her as a victim and all that, and the other side wants to portray her as always of course she's a fireborn, but as somebody who's always baying for blood and revenge kind of a thing. But the truth is that she is an empress. Whether she is actually on the throne or not, she cares for that balance, and she calls for balance rather than revenge. That's Draupadi for me, and same with other women that I write about.
Right. Thank you, Swarupa. Moving on to Rishabh, you are also an entrepreneur. So, as an entrepreneur, do you think technology and globalization impact the realization of spiritual equality? And also, from business lenses, would such equality ever be practical? And because in a system, like, would a system ever be able to treat a struggler with equal humanitarian respect as a top performing revenue grosser?
Well, I think look around us. I think when we talk about technology, when we talk about globalization, if there was, when we talk about inequality in terms of opportunities, if there was inequality, of course, there are pockets in the world even today where substantial inequality exists in so many forms. I look at equality as a equality in opportunity. Equality does not mean we all are going to be at the same spot. It's not going to be of all of us being uh, equal in terms of our wealth or our education or the way we live. Or when we talk about, I'm talking about business terms, or because your question was addressed to me as an entrepreneur. but it is about equality of opportunity. So I think when we talk about how technology, how globalization is impacted, today it has brought the world to our homes, it has brought the world to our smartphones, it has brought the world to our computer screens. The opportunities that technology brings about are immense. Today, we see small town India, we see small town world creating so many things which would have been unthinkable, say, even a couple of decades back. So, I think as an entrepreneur and as an individual, I would say technology and globalization has definitely impacted this, the sense of equal opportunity in a very, very positive way. The world has truly become flat. Governments, communities, societies may create rail guards here and there, but to a large extent, the world has become flat, and there is huge amount of unexplored opportunity available to one and all. Now, when we say that would a system ever treat a struggler with equal humanitarian respect compared to a top performer? I think it is a question of what kind of system are we talking about. See, as a system, we celebrate performers. As a system, we celebrate success. As a system, we celebrate winners. And perhaps rightly so. So, question is not about whether the system is uh, recognizing these top performers. The question here is, with what lens do we look at it? Are we going to look at it as a source of inspiration? Are we going to look at it as something we need to idolize? Are we going to look at it with a sense of how, what all the human individual can achieve? I think it is about how we look at things, which is more important than what are we looking at, because we can always find the positive and the negative in anything and everything that we do. When we talk about a generic struggler and when we talk about humanitarian respect, I think respect is something which every individual deserves, because every individual is going through their own life cycle. They have their own set of challenges, they have their own set of perspectives. And I think we cannot really not respect someone because of their inability to perform in a particular sphere. Now, would a system be able to treat it as such? I think when we talk about a system, it's about the individuals, which brings me back to the whole aspect of spiritual equality and what heartfulness teaches us. I think if we are connected to our hearts, I think there is a sense of empathy which pervades our interactions with the world. This empathy recognizes that today, when we talk about someone struggling, he or she may be struggling only in a certain sphere. That does not identify or that does not decide the entire being that the so called struggler is. Vis-a-vis what we talk about a top performing revenue grosser. Of course, in business, there are going to be targets. In businesses, there are going to be celebrations of what is success. But at the same time, there has to be a recognition that there is a whole field of opportunity. There's a whole large field of talent which may not necessarily fit into the very small, narrow uh, aspect that we are looking for in a business. And today, with globalization, with technology, I think these so-called strugglers, these so-called non-conformers have the opportunity to shine out in other fields. They have the opportunity to shine out in their chosen areas of success, in their chosen professions, in their chosen ideas of what they would like to express through their craft, through their art, through their whole enterprise. So I think the typical uh, traditional lines of how we used to look at businesses, how we used to look at entrepreneurship, how we used to look at professional life in general are getting blurred. Today, the gig economy is so big. Today, so many new things are opening up. And I think technology has been a great enabler in this. Today, globalization has been a great enabler in this. So today, you can have a pianist sitting in London giving piano lessons to a kid in India. You can have a chess player sitting in Chennai uh, teaching chess to kids in, I mean, United States. The opportunities, the expression of these opportunities, the expression of what we can do has enhanced tremendously. We can choose to, of course, talk about the pockets of inequalities that still exist, the inequality of opportunity. But I think we've made great strides as a civilization, and as time goes, as as technology becomes more and more accessible, I'm absolutely confident that the equality of opportunity will become more and more of a reality for one and all.
Right. Thank you, Rishabh. Moving on to Akhaya. Uh, you have already talked about the various divisions that exist in the society, but it is true that the world operates via various power structures which constantly inject divisive elements through, maybe gender, religion, language, nationality, economic status, among others. So, but the power dynamic starts shaping right from the moment of our birth, which is not even in our control to resist. So, since you have done a lot of research and study related to the Vedic structures and the Vedic scriptures and the Bhagavad Gita, what advice from the Bhagavad Gita would you like to share with us that can help us to detach from the divisive influences?
It is a very long answer. Okay. So I wish to answer this question in some points, maybe five, 6 points. Okay. So as you already mentioned that the idea of who am I is shaped from the very beginning, and the power struggle and the power structure is ingrained in our mind from the very beginning of our birth. But the problem that most of us are facing nowadays is that, if you ask anybody, even in India, okay, then most of us are subscribing to the concept of one life culture. Okay, है ना, एक ही जिंदगी है, जी लेना चाहिए, है ना. So this Vedic philosophy never subscribes to this one life culture apart from one strand, which is called Sarvak, okay, which says that rinam krutva ghritam pivat, javat jivet sukham jivet, vasmibhutasya sarira kutah punaragaman. So that is Sarvak philosophy. But otherwise, all other strands of our Vedic philosophy talk about reincarnation or multi-life culture, that we have not come here once but multiple times. We are keep coming in different form. And when we talk about power structure, all these differences, like even gender, I may be a male in this lifetime, but I may have been female in many other lifetimes. And now I'm a female, I may be male in some other lifetimes. So because I have got a male body, now I will try to exploit the female. And then if I understand that I can be female in the next time, okay, so that will automatically restrict me. No, I will also be exploiting the female. This is going to happen in our multi-life culture, where the gender of the spiritual is not fixed. The gender of the body is fixed. Okay. Nowadays, that is also fluid. Okay. But that one reincarnation, where Krishna says in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, Vasansi jinnani yatha vihaya navani grihati naro prani yatha sariraya vihaya jinnani anyani sanyati navani dehi. And it says, like, we change our body like we change the dresses. When a dress is worn out, we throw it out and then take a new dress. So like that, when the body is worn out, so we leave it and then again accept a new body. Okay. So, but when we talk about this multi-life culture, this lifetime I may be powerful, I may be male, I may be female, I may be, with living this body, I'm going to live all these things. So then that brings us a lot of humility. That I'm proud of all those things which are not going to stay with me forever, and it's not even sure that how much time it is going to be with me in this lifetime, because I'm never sure that when I'm going to leave my body. Corona came. Many people are proud of many things. Okay, in within 2 months, many people left their bodies. Okay, they never thought that I'm going to die. Accident happens. So when all these things we become aware, then the pride on the basis of all these designations, okay, are automatically gone, and then it brings us a sense of humility. So that is why in Indian tradition it is said Vidya Dadati Vinaya. Okay. When we become more and more knowledgeable, we become humbler and humbler. If knowledge is not humble, okay. And then second point I want to make is this world is defined in Bhagavad Gita as Dukhalayam or Saswatam. Okay. So it's not that our own body, everything in this world is temporary. But you may think that, okay, it is a very pessimistic view of life, but it is true. We see all around that everything is temporary. Or there is also an optimistic all this, temporariness. That is that a human body, when we get a human body, it is durlabham and arthadam. It is very rare and it is very meaningful. Like we are discussing about all these things, four of us in this forum, we cannot bring an ant to participate in this kind of discussion because in that body, this kind of facilities are not available. Okay, so that is why the human body is a very special gift, which is very meaningful, where we can do a lot of things which cannot be done in some other body. And one of them is to attain that supreme, self, to attain that supreme consciousness. Okay, so that is very difficult in all other, bodies. So everything is temporary. Multi-life culture. In this lifetime, whatever we have, we can lose, and not only our body, but the whole world is temporary. Things are temporary. But then human life is arthadam and durlabham. Then another concept also is discussed in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, which is the concept of karma. Okay, so and many people ask, if concept of karma is right, then why many dangerous people are enjoying their life and good people are suffering? That is a very common question that is asked wherever I talk about the theory of karma, law of karma. So why? Because we again see things in a one life time. It pertains to many, many lifetimes. Sometimes, and there are two kinds of karma: instant result and there are delayed result. Okay, like you take potassium cyanide, you will get instant result. Okay, but you take gutka, those tobacco is number one killer in the world, but nobody dies immediately after taking tobacco. It takes time. So karma is defined as a seed. Karma is like a seed, and different seeds take different amount of time to fructify. Okay, if we have a coconut seed, that may take 5 hours to give us fruits. But if we sow wheat seed, that may give us fruit in 4 months. So like that, potassium cyanide, immediate result. Tobacco, it may take 10 years, 20 years to get cancer. Right? Lifetimes. Like suppose before just 2 minutes before my death, I donated all my money to some unprivileged children or people. and then I die. So I never enjoyed the result of my charity. So is it going to be wasted? No. Vedic philosophy says it doesn't go waste. So that is carried to some other lifetime. Okay. So in this lifetime, I am powerful, I am rich, I have some opportunities, I have some things which others lack, and because of which I will be proud. But when I think about all those things, okay, because I did something right, so this is there. If I do something wrong in this lifetime, then I may suffer later. So that also brings us to the ground, and that is grounds us, or that makes us grounded, and then makes us humble. And then Bhagavad Gita also talks about being grounded in like this. We have to follow the teachings of Bhagavad Gita like yagya, tapa, and dana. These three should never be rejected. Bhagavad Gita says yagya, tapa, and dana. And of course, we have various conceptions of yagya, but yagya means, when we accepted some duties based on our psychophysical conditions and spiritual reality, so we have to perform it, with utmost diligence. Like a mother taking care of a child properly is also a yajna. Yajna doesn't mean only hava. That is one kind of yajna that is called Agnihotra yajna. Okay, so there are n number of yajna, various kinds of yajnas. So a businessman performing business in ethical way and expanding it is also a yajna for him. A teacher following the principles of dharma and making good students, producing good students is also a yajna. So all these are yajna is not only limited to some respect. So there are various kinds. So yajna, and then tapa, and tapa is opposite of enjoyment. Always the enjoyment is enjoyment, always the enjoyment is sense, but immediately we cannot understand. When we perform, India has become the diabetes capital of the world. Okay, cholesterol, heart, heart diseases, all these kinds of things are happening, uh, mostly because of the kind of diet we are taking, which are palatable to the tongue. Okay, not good for health. We don't prefer the food which is good for body, rather which is palatable for us. So all the junk food, fast food, all everything is palatable but not good for the body. Okay, but we perform a little bit of austerity. We take food which is good. We avoid all those things. So suffering is avoided only with a little bit of tapasya. So that is what tapa. Okay, and then dana, charity, because we are indebted to a lot of forces. We are indebted to our parents. We are indebted to nature. We are indebted to all the human beings, even the other living entities. Okay, the teachers, rishis. So we are indebted to a lot of entities. So this is described in Rig Veda as Pancha Maharina. Okay, so we in order to repay those debts, we have to perform charity. Okay, and finally, I will end with the Chaitanya Charitamrita, one of the verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which says, Bharata bhumite janma hoile jara, janma sarthaka kari karo paropakar. It's in Bengali, which means, you know, whoever is born in the land of India, Bharata bhumite hoile janma jara. What is the prime duty? First, you make your life successful, janma sarthaka karo. Then paropakar. Then you help others to make their life successful. Okay, so that is what, if we follow these precepts of shastra, then amidst all these diversities or opportunities, or whatever I have others don't have, amidst all these things we can still be grounded, humble, and then this the concept of equality may arise out of it. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Right, absolutely, Akhaya. Thank you for that. Moving on to Swarupa, as also a person who is constantly shaping young minds, what do you think are the ethical implications of striving for spiritual equality, and how do they inform our actions and behavior in the presence of youngsters whose sense of appropriateness could be way different from your personal value system? You're on mute, Swarupa.
Yeah, so actually, my experience in dealing with young minds has been a eye opener for myself, because I kind of approached with this notion of, okay, my generation, this generation, millennials, their value system is different and all that. But I was in for a pleasant surprise, rather pleasant shock, when in one of the classes. Uh, I was asked questions like, "Ma'am, what is a mantra? What is a sukta? What is the difference between them?" And can I, while being a student, can I, seek God, or things like that? Of course, we were discussing Indian knowledge systems there in that class, and the questions were, whatever the answers I give, of course, are based on the knowledge systems that I have acquired, but the questions themselves were eye openers for me. I would say youth are much more idealistic than us. The if we take an average of our generation, the younger generation, with me, which is maybe 15, 20 years younger, they are much more idealistic. And we just have to remember that maybe most of us have come from an aspiring perspective, struggled through, we have seen our parents struggle, and meet both ends, and give their ensure that we don't suffer that way, and and ensure that we studied and we are empowered to pursue our dreams. Maybe people who are 15, 20 years younger than us, they might be have been born into uh, somewhat better economic status than we enjoyed in our childhood. So I think, rather than sending them into that mindless chase towards careers, which they will, because I keep always telling them, skill development and professional development, always give your best. But in foundation courses, just pause and think whether everything is worth it, and whether you are doing going in the right direction, whether you're balancing all aspects of your life, and that's and whether we are being responsible. So we just have to empower them with the right questions, rather than pontificate, or trying to matronize them. That's what I would say. I respect the young minds.
Right. Thank you, Swarupa. With that, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you once again, Rishabh, Akhaya, and Swarupa, for this very insightful conversation, and of course, your time this evening. I'm sure the audience have learned and have taken something with them today. Please allow me to remind you that Tell Me Your Story is also calling for submissions on the story prompt, that is, Women Without Names. Registrations are also open for our writing program season 13. We hope to hear from you soon. Till then, stay well, stay happy. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sourabhi.